everybody, it's Joe Parrott, founder of the Ladies Working Dog Group. Are you feeling stuck with your Gundog training? Trust me, you're not alone, and that's exactly why you need to be here. Every week, we're bringing you the best tips and hacks to make training your Gundog easy peasy. We'll keep it straightforward, no fuss, just actionable guidance that you can put straight to use. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to another episode of Found It Fetched It. This week we are excited to be joined by Nicola Calendra, a specialist vet in small animal surgery. Nicola is a new guest to our podcast. Welcome, Nicola. How are you today?
Yeah, good. Thank you, Joe.
I'm really interested to have this sort of conversation and go into this topic with you, Nicola, because obesity is like one of those things in dogs that's not completely understood, as in, when is my dog sort of obese? So how do we sort of judge obesity in a dog?
Well, I guess it's a very challenging thing to judge these days, because if you go out onto the street, probably most of the dogs we come across are overweight. So if you're looking to judge it based on other dogs you might see, that's not always a good indication. But I guess typically we want dogs to be in hourglass shape, and it very much depends on the breed. So for most dogs, like your gun dogs, you want them to be like a nice hourglass shape. They want to have a nice tucked in waist, and you should be able to just about see the last rib, and you should definitely be able to palpate them. Whereas other dogs like sighthounds, for example, they're often, they're a different shape completely. But yeah, it is difficult to judge. And like, even if you try to use a scale, like a weight scale, because dogs, even between breeds, like you can get very small Labradors, very big Labradors, it's very difficult to say, they need to be, X number of kilograms to be healthy. So it goes very much on what we call the body condition score. And if you have a look online, you can see lots of charts to refer to. And we normally grade them out of 9. And whereas you want to aim for a good 5 in the middle, like not too skinny and not too overweight.
And you are right. When you walk the streets now, sometimes I think you see dogs that, to me and to you, we think nice, healthy weight, but then to others might look, or are they a little bit underweight? Because we see a lot of dogs that tend to be carrying a lot more weight than normal, should we say?
Yeah, of course. Like for me, I think it's probably more unusual these days when I think, oh, that's a nice looking Labrador. It's got a nice waist. Whereas most of the times the Labradors that we see, for example, are overweight. And it is very difficult for these breeds because their natural instinct is to eat. Like it's something that's intrinsic in dogs. It's a survival instinct. They've got some food, they just want to eat. So it's we can't blame them. It's not their fault. It's something that's physically inside these dogs. They drive to eat as much food as possible.
What do you think are the main causes of obesity in dogs?
It has to come back to people. And owners are the boss. It's not like a Labrador can decide, he wants a large portion of food for dinner, or, I'm going to cut back a bit today. So it's people, unfortunately. And it's people being kind. They look at you with their puppy dog eyes. You'll just give them a bit more food. I'm just eating my dinner. There's a little bit of meat left. I'm just going to give you this bit of meat and gravy. Give them lots of treats if you're doing dog training. Lots of treats. Keep going. It all adds up. Each little treat you give, like some of them have got the same amount of calories for a dog as like a Big Mac. It's this got a huge impact. So yeah, it's really people, unfortunately, being kind but actually not helping matters.
What you just sort of said there just touched home because I thought, not that I think I should be checking the calories of every pack, but I don't even know, and I can't even tell you whether the treats tell me their nutritional content. Like, I don't know what, even if you know the answer to this, do they need to tell us what we're giving our dogs?
They do have some information on the back, but I guess ultimately as well, it's hard to say, like one treat for a small dog is quite a lot proportionally to a larger dog. So we can't really have the same guide. Like in people, we can say, this is how many calories an adult male should be eating. So it's a lot easier then to gauge, how you're doing. But in dogs, there's such a variety. I'm not even sure that would be so useful. So if you do have problems with your dog's weight, some of the things that are advised are, like if you weigh the dog's food, and if you're going to be doing lots of training with them in the day, you take a handful of that food for the day, you put it in a little bag, and then you can use the food then as the treat. So that way you don't have to use, other foods to try to like tempt them to do their agility, for example.
Yeah, and you're quite right. It's really easy through the day, like because I work from home and I eat my meals in the house. It's quite easy to say, "Oh, have that bit," or have that bit of fat, or have this bit because they're with you. They're part of your day, if that makes sense. So yeah, I can see how owner could unwittingly be giving them so many more calories. And in our house, we have two spaniels, and then we have one poodle cross. And I don't say, "Oh, you have a little bit less because you're smaller." They tend to have pretty much the same. So yeah, it's a lot for us to think about in what are we giving them in relation to their size.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what are sort of the early signs of obesity in dogs that owners need to be looking out for?
To be honest, it's something that you don't necessarily see early signs for. It's just something that creeps up and it gets to a point where like like for an owner might not necessarily notice it because they put a little bit more weight on every day and it's not something that you can tell. Like as they get bigger, they can get more lethargic. They don't want to go out for walks as much. Everything's more of an effort. They might struggle to get up the stairs a little bit more. Like it does have quite pronounced effects on their breathing, especially some breeds, like the shorter nose breeds, your brachycephalics, it can have huge impacts on their breathing. And for other dogs, they might be prone to joint issues. They might have hip dysplasia or other orthopedic conditions. They might really be a bit more sluggish when they're walking, a bit stiffer. And there's other things that can cause as well, like pancreatitis and other problems. But they tend to manifest more later on. So in the early stages, you might not necessarily see it. So it is something you probably need to be aware of earlier on. And every dog is different. Like even if you read the back of the pack and it says to feed 500 grams for this weight dog. For some dogs, that'll still be too much for them. So you do have to be quite dynamic in your feeding and you have to just keep an eye on them. And if it looks like they are putting on weight, you can cut back, you can weigh it a little bit less. So an easy thing to do is if you get like a pot, like an old like soup pot, like a little plastic one, you can weigh it out when you start and then just draw a little line on it so you don't have to weigh it out every day. So that way it saves time in the morning then into working out how much food to give.
I suppose for us as humans, like as our sort of trousers get a little bit tight, we think, "Oh, maybe I need to slow down here." But you're quite right. It's normally our clothing that tells us. Because I suppose when we look in the mirror, we don't see tiny, tiny changes. So for us looking at our dogs, it's the same. We're not seeing those tiny, tiny gradual changes. We see it maybe, like you said, at the point where we are seeing problems occur from that weight.
Yeah, definitely.
We've touched a little bit on like the sort of problems that we can have from them, but can obesity in dogs be linked to like certain behavioural changes?
It's apart from like slowing down quite a bit, that might be the only thing that you see. Because they're not, they don't want to go out for a walk as much, or if they do go on a walk, they might want to turn around a bit quicker because everything's a bit harder for them. So the impact, if they store fat not only on the outside but also on the inside of their bodies as well, so they might not be able to expand their lungs as well. Their abdomens might feel a bit tighter, so they're going to go for a walk but they feel a bit uncomfortable. They might just want to go back home and sleep. And again, that leads to the cycle of, it's the same as a person, you need to have a good diet and exercise. So yeah, they're probably the things that you see most commonly from their behaviour. And for some breeds, like if you do start feeding them from the table, they do start to get into a habit and they might start to steal food more. So we always say not to feed food from the table because they're more likely to steal your Christmas dinner or things when you're not looking.
Again, no, like you said right at the beginning, people do it out of kindness, and they look at them to what
Yeah,
go on then.
absolutely. Yeah, they're very loved dogs.
So how does obesity, like we touched on it, like how it impacts their overall health and their longevity, but long term, we can kill them with our kindness, can't we?
Definitely, they do, have problems. So I won't keep referring back to Labradors, but it applies to other breeds, like especially like beagles and spaniels and things. If they're carrying all this weight, it's really going to affect their joint mobility, and like often like some breeds are really prone to certain joint conditions and arthritis. And you definitely, we might, have to euthanize them sooner if they're really struggling to get around. In addition to like breathing problems, like I said, they often store fat in their airways, especially in the summer months. And some breeds, like your like your pugs, your bulldogs, they're so vulnerable to high temperatures, and we've definitely lost, quite a lot of dogs because of obesity and having, abnormal airways.
We don't actually think a lot, really, to be like, as you're talking, I think, oh, I don't actually think about what's building on the inside, because we don't think about it as humans. We sort of judge our weight mostly on our visual appearance, so we don't really think what's going on inside. But no, I don't think loads about, oh, what's going on inside of my dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can have all sorts of, things. Like it can affect the pancreas. The pancreas is a really sensitive organ. So if dogs do have lots of fatty meals, it can make it inflamed. And also, like in the abdomen, when we'll do surgery on dogs' abdomens, it can be absolutely ram-packed with fat sometimes. And I guess the reality is we don't know how much it does impact them, and maybe in the future, we're inventing, more and more diseases all the time. Like things are becoming more apparent. So there's definitely lots of health implications. Like if with people, obviously there's the problems with diabetes and insulin resistance, and in dogs now we are starting to find the same links.
If you think about it, like it's quite fascinating when you're saying like about even like surgeries. We don't think sometimes like that by letting them get overweight, we then make an issue for things like if they needed surgery, even on like a routine spay-in, there's more for you to deal with, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly like a spay on an overweight dog is a lot more challenging compared to a slim dog, because they just store fat all around their kidneys and their ovaries. So from my perspective, I'd much rather operate on a slim animal.
Yeah, definitely. And a healthy animal, because they'll
Yeah.
be able to bounce back quicker after an operation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a real balance, isn't it? Because like I said, we're trying to be kind and to do the best thing for them, but actually the kinder thing is to cut back and to get them into a healthy weight range.
Is there sort of any dietary changes that you recommend? Like if somebody's listening to this now and they're like, oh, mine is carrying a little bit more than probably they should. Is there any sort of dietary changes they can make to rectify that, to take it back the other way?
Oh, definitely. There's loads of things to do, and one of the most sensible things is to get in touch with your local vet. They often do weight clinics, so you can go in, you can pop them on the scales, and they can get used to going to the vet. So if they don't like going, it's quite nice. They can go stand on the scales just to get used to going there. You can get a regular weight check then to make sure that we're aware of what we're doing is going to cause any change. You can take your normal food and just reduce it by 10-20%. Or something that you can do is to get one of these prescription diets, so they're lower in fat. It's kind of like when you go to Slimming World or other weight loss clinics, where you're eating the same like volume of food, but actually the calorie per calorie density is lower. So the dogs feel like they're having the same food as they were having before, but there's a lot less energy in it for them. So that's probably one of the easiest ways to do it, and the way you can get quicker results. And lots of run these regular clinics where they can help you to adjust things. When you weigh your food out, you just take a little bit aside each day, so you don't have any more treats, no feeding off the table, and you're really quite strict about things. If you want to give them a little treat, you could give them a little bit of carrot or other vegetable, just to try to, they feel like they're getting something exciting. But yeah, to cut out anything, no sausages, bits of meat, all these things have got a lot of calories for them.
Yeah, because when we tend to treat, we do tend to treat with sort of like high density, high calorie foods rather than, oh, here's a carrot.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Chances are they would enjoy the carrot just as much.
Yeah, it's true.
And I suppose for them as well, when you're adding vegetables to their diet, there's obviously the good implications from that as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They've got vitamins, minerals in. This, adds diversity to their diet. They're definitely helpful for them.
For all we know, they think carrots the way we think chocolate is. So maybe they'd be like,
Yeah. I think it's more the chase, getting some human food. Like if you've got some carrot, like the ends of the carrot, I'll often, put them in my dog's bowl just to try to distract him a little bit, and he thinks he's getting a good treat there.
So we touched upon there that there are specific foods and supplements that can help manage weight. Is there, this is just a case of going along to the vet and saying, look, can you tell if my dog is overweight or not? And what can I do if they are overweight? It's just talking to your vet, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to have a good rapport with your local vet. And yeah, like the regular clinics help to keep it in touch as well. Because if you can go regularly, it just helps to cement things. Because sometimes you think you're doing really well, and then you might go to your vet, chat to the nurse, and you think, oh gosh, I've been feeding this, thinking this was a good thing, but actually, this isn't helping matters. So they can help you to tweak things. Maybe you need to reduce the food volume further. And maybe you can start exercising if they're healthy and they've got no other problems.
Is there sort of any sort of exercise regime that you would recommend for like an overweight dog? Because we touched upon the fact that their joints can be under pressure. Is there a way we can just maybe put some more exercise in for them?
And again, it depends very much on your dog. If they do have joint issues, you don't want to do too much strenuous exercises. So lots of the throwing balls, if they've got joint issues, that's not always the best thing for them. So like slow, walks and walks on the lead, they're probably quite beneficial just to go for longer. And if they are really overweight and they're not used to it, like smaller, more frequent walks might be better. It's always difficult to try to fit in all this into people's lives, because obviously people have busy lives. And but yeah, lots of regular exercise. If they're healthy and they've got no other issues, take the ball in the garden and throw it. That's something that can really help to move them around more.
Yeah, because like for a lot of our ladies, when we train, we maybe go to somewhere a bit wider to do a little bit more work. But even in the garden, like back and forth, they can track up quite a lot of sort of mileage or quite a lot of exercise just going back and forth, can't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's like if I'm struggling to take my dog out for a bit, I need to burn off all the energy. We'll just go in the garden and throw his toys around for a bit and he gets him out of breath.
Okay, and so what are sort of the best practices for preventing obesity in gun dogs, like from an early age when they come into us, and as pups, they're obviously needing to eat more. And how can we stop that becoming like a permanent lifestyle habit?
I guess it's just knowing what food you're giving and how much they need. And obviously, when they're growing, they've got lots of demands for calcium and other chemicals that are really important for their bones to grow. So it's important not to restrict them too much, and especially when they're puppies and they've got lots of puppy fat. That's quite normal. But when they get older, once they reach about 6 months or so, that's when I think you need to start getting them into a good regime. Like a 6 months is when you start to change them from multiple meals a day to just two meals. So that's when you need to start thinking about, how are things progressing. So just to start early, to feed a good quality food, something that's got, the right balance of vitamins and minerals in, and to make sure that they're getting everything they need. I probably wouldn't cut back when they're puppies. But once they start to get older, you can start to gauge then, how they are, what their metabolism's like, how much exercise they need. Like it's a bit of a vague answer, but I guess every dog is so different. It's hard to give one rule fits all.
And I think it's like if we go back to where we started the podcast, like you said, for you mentioned it's lovely to see a dog in the right shape. I take my spaniel to my local vet, and he says, oh, it's lovely to see muscle, and it's nice to see them looking well. And I suppose for those who haven't got an overweight dog, you're doing a good job, aren't you? You don't let people say, oh, they should be heavier.
Yeah, everybody's got a strong opinion. I think it's fair to say, but what's right for your dog, and if you've got a dog that's a healthy weight, you need to celebrate it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for talking to us about this topic, because I know that it's really helpful for people, especially in the lead up to Christmas now, when there's probably more sausage and turkey laying around the house than normal. It is very easy to use the dog as the food disposal, isn't it? So for people to just be mindful that we don't want them coming out in January carrying more weight than they need to.
Definitely, I think we're all responsible for that in our house.
For us and our dogs.
Yeah, definitely, probably more me, to be honest.
Well, thank you very much for giving us your time today, Nicola. Hopefully, Nicola will be joining us in small podcasts going forward in 2024, where we will talk more about specialisms and specialism surgery. But for today, we hope that you've enjoyed, and we shall see you all next week. That's it for today's episode. A massive thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to head over to the LWDG and sign up for our membership. Get access to expert-led training, a wonderfully supportive community, and the resources you need to become a confident and skilled gun dog trainer. Let's take this journey together, because no woman should have to train her gun dog alone. We'll see you all next week.